Hello, world, and hello, amazing Philippines. Good day. This is again Sir A, and for today, we're going to continue our lesson, of course, in discussing assessment learning one. And we have, of course, module five. But before we start, of course, let me share my screen, okay, for all of you. Okay, so here we go. But before we, of course, start with our chapter five, this is the distinguishing, of course, and constructing various paper and pencil tests. I would like to invite you all to, of course, subscribe with my YouTube channel. And of course, you can hit the like button, supposing you like this video. And of course, you can leave a comment now in our comment box. Okay, supposing you learn something from, of course, this video. For today's, of course, objective, we have, of course, the following. Okay, the first is establish clear understanding of the table of specification. The second one is explain the process of constructing a table of specification. The third is identify this and distinguish, of course, between the different types of the test. The fourth is constructed a table of specification. And lastly, of course, constructed paper and pencil test in accordance with the guidelines in test construction. Cool. Let's start with this, of course, picture. So according to, of course, World Watch, the Philadelphia Trumpet of, in August, of course, 2005, according to, of course, the study, 13% of the students who got low grades in exams are caused by faulty test questions. Imagine if that would be the scenario, okay, something is wrong. Now with, of course, the assessment that we have. Okay, or of course with the test question. So in order to avoid this one, we need to study, of course, um, test construction. Okay, and having, of course, that picture and that, of course, result of the study with the possible reasons for faulty test questions. The first is, of course, questions are copied verbatim from the book or other resources. Another is, of course, it's not consulting, of course, the course outline, supposing the teacher no is that consulting the course outline. Then much consideration is given to reduce printing cost, and of course, no TOS or TOS was made after making the test. No, based, of course, with my observation, many teachers are doing TOS after okay, they have constructed the test questions. But in the proper way, we should have, of course, the TOS or table of specification first before we can, of course, construct our test. So that's it. And for our outline of the presentation, we will first discuss the table of specifications, together with, of course, the functions and construction rather of a table of spec. And we have the objective test types, the strengths and their weaknesses, the easy type test, no, and its of course advantages and disadvantages, and of course the easy item, okay, and together with, of course, the math problems, no, with their guidelines in its construction and scoring plan. It is said that the assessment of learning outcomes in the K to 12 program, the teachers should employ assessment methods that are consistent with the standard. So, what's the standard that we are talking? We are, of course, talking about um, the standard that we can found, no, with the milks. Okay, and supposing if we refer to our lesson plan, there is, of course, the objectives that we need to consider. The second is teachers must employ both the formative and summative assessment, both individually and, of course, collaboratively. Okay, and another is grades are a function of written work, performance tasks, and quarterly tests. Okay, another is the cognitive process dimension given by Cratworld and Anderson governs, of course, the formulation of assessment tasks. And we have, of course, no, the important steps in planning for a test. We need to identify the test objectives or the lesson outcomes that we have. The second one is we need to decide on the type of objective test to be prepared. Hmm. What type of the test that you can have probably now. The third is of course prepare a table of specifications or the TOS, and the fourth is constructing the draft test items, and the last is of course try out and validations. If you notice, table of specifications should come first before, of course, you can construct the test items. So that's the practice that we need to have. Okay, let's have the TOS preparation or the table of specifications. Okay, when we say, of course, the TOS, no, it's the blueprint or the test blueprint. And it serves as the test map that guides, of course, the teacher in constructing a test. And the TOS ensures that there is a balance between, of course, the items that test lower level thinking skills, okay, or the lots, and of course, those which test higher order thinking skills or the HOTS. Okay, so basing on these, of course, facts that we can have, TOS is very important. Okay, we have functions of the table of specifications. TOS, of course, identifies the achievement domains being measured and ensures that a fair, take note, fair, and a representative sample of questions appear on the test. Okay, another is, of course, it ensures that the test focuses on the most important areas, weights difference, of course, areas based on their importance, the time spent teaching, and gives the proof that is needed to make, of course, to make sure that the test has, of course, the content validity. So talking of this, no, we can really see the significance or the importance of the tables of specifications based on its functions. Okay, what about the benefits of having a TOS? The first is it helps us building a balanced test. The second is, of course, it achieves the reliability and validity of the test. And it gives true weight for each lesson, meaning you cannot set aside one lesson just for the sake of you want to have, of course, more items in the other lesson. Then giving students, of course, self-confidence about the justice of course, the test, and it selects a representative sample. So having, of course, the benefits, it's really, of course, advantages for the part, not in the part of the students, having, of course, the TOS. Okay, we have, of course, the steps in constructing a table of specifications. And the first is, of course, determine the topics to be included in the test. The second one is determine the number of hours or the minutes allotted for each topic. The third is determine the total number of items. And then the fourth is determine the number of items per topic or content area. Take note that certain types of questions require certain, of course, length for students to complete an item. For example, we have here the true false test. So it requires 15 to 30 seconds per question. Okay, what about multiple choice? And these include, of course, the recall questions that are brief. So you have, of course, 30 to 60 seconds, no? Per question. And then we have for more complex multiple choice questions, you need to have 60 to 90 seconds for that. What about for multiple choice problems with, of course, calculations? So you need to allot 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, for the short answer, meaning it's one word answer, so you have 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, for short answer, having, of course, longer than one word, so you have, of course, 1 to 4 minutes. For matching, okay, type, you have, supposing you have five premises and six responses, you allot 2 to 4 minutes. Okay, for the short essays, you have, of course, 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, for data analysis and graphing, the same, no? You can have 15, but it's more than, of course, 20. You need to have 25 minutes. Again, it's 15 to 25 minutes for drawing, no? Or supposing you're going to label and draw, or draw and label after. So you need to have 30 to 20 to 30 minutes. And for extended, of course, essays, you need to have 35 to 50 minutes. So that's it. Kindly, of course, recall these, no? Uh, time frame. Okay, and of course, creating your test. Step number 5 is to determine, of course, the level of difficulty and its percentage in the test. Okay, so posing for the test questions that we have for ESE, or EC rather. So you have, of course, the knowledge comprehension, which is 30. For the average level, you have, of course, included here is the application analysis, which consists of 50%. Okay, for the difficult questions, you have, of course, synthesis and evaluations, which is 20. Okay, take note, my dear students, that when we have, of course, the test, we started with the easy one, no? The simple one. So, dapat dun tayo magsimula. Okay, and it comprises of 30% of the test. Okay, the next that we have, of course, is step number 6. So, determine the number of items for each topic per level or of difficulty. And step number 7 is make sure that the vertical and horizontal sum of the items are correct. Okay, which I'm going to show that later. And number 8 rather is write the item placement for each number of items. And then number 9 is complete the tables of specifications, making sure that everything is in place. Okay. And number 10 is always have your TOS side by side test. Okay, draft. So you need to have, of course, the draft for the test after, of course, making your TOS. Okay, take a look with, of course, the basic format of the table of specifications. So you can see, of course, the content or the topics. Yeah, you have space there, no, for the topics. Then we have, of course, for the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, the K here stands for, of course, the knowledge. The C is for comprehension. A is, of course, the application. Is analysis, S is synthesis, and of course, evaluation. Then you can see the number of recitation days, and the number of test items, and percentage of test items. Okay, in the lower portion, aligned with, of course, the topics, now are the content are okay, the total number of recitation days, the total number of test items, total percentage of test items, and the placement of the test items. Okay, so this is the basic, no, format of the TOS that we can have. Okay. So the next probably step that we need to have is, of course, we need to know or identify the number of recitation days. So you can see here the total number of recitation days is 20. The next that we need to consider is we need to allot, of course, the number of recitation days per topics. Okay, you can see here topic number 1, so you have 3. Okay, topic number 2 is 4, topic number 3 is 8, topic number 4 is 5. So if you're going to add it all, you have, of course, 20. Okay. For, of course, the formula in getting the number of test items you can have there, now the number of recitation days, okay, over or divided by the total number of recitation days times, of course, the total number of items. Supposing we will have topic number 1. So the the number of recitation day, okay, for topic number 1 is 3 divided by, of course, 20, which is the total number of recitation days times 60. You will have, of course, 9 as the number of test items for day 1. Okay, for, of course, day 2 or topic, no, no, for topic 1 rather. For topic 2, okay, you have, of course, 4. That's 4 days, no, recitation days over, of course, 20 times 60, you will get 12. Okay, for topic 3, which is 8, so you have 8 over 20 times 60, you will have 24. And for topic number 5, you have, of course, topic number 4 other, which you have 5 days for that. So you have, of course, 5 over 20 times 60. So you get 15. What about to get, of course, the number of test items? So you have there, of course, the number of test items, which is 9. Okay. And for example, where I'm talking about topic number one, so it's 9, then the total number of items, no, is 60. And you're going to multiply that to 100. Example for topic one, we have 9 over 60, okay, times 100. You have, of course, 15% of the test items comes from topic one. For topic two, which is 4, so you are going to have 12 over 60 times 100, which is 20%. For topic three, which is 8, so you have, of course, 24 items over 60 times 100, you get, of course, 40. And, of course, for topic 4, which is 5, so you have, of course, 15 over 60. Now times 100, you get, of course, 25. So that's very simple, no? We can, of course, use the formula again in getting the number of test items. You're going to have the number of recitation days divided by, of course, the total number of recitation days times the uh, total number of items. Okay, who is the one giving, of course, the total items? Of course, you as a teacher. So that's it. What about for the percentage of the test items? You have, of course, the number of test items over the total number of items times 100. So that's the formula. We have here, okay, another examples, no? Okay, of the table of specifications wherein you can see now the, of course, the topic with corresponding, of course, allotment of the questions, no, for knowledge comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Okay, so borrowing, of course, the table, no, from the previous slide, which we have. Okay, so you have there, of course, for the number of recitation days for topic one, you have, of course, 3. For topic two, for 8, for topic 3, and topic 4 is 5. So if we're going to have the number of test items 9, so it's distributed, no, in supposing topic 1, there are 3 questions for knowledge, 3 for comprehension, okay, no for the application and analysis, okay, together with, of course, the synthesis, but there are 3 questions for evaluation. So that's it. Okay, for topic 2, there is no questions for knowledge, but however, there are 5 questions for comprehension, 2 for the application, and 5 for analysis, for total of 12. For topic 3, you have, of course, 4 for knowledge, 5 for application, 6 for analysis, no? And for evaluation, there are 9, so total is 24. For topic 4, you have, of course, for the application, you have 5 questions, and for synthesis, you have 10. So total of 20, 15 rather. Okay, so that's it. Total of 15 for topic 4. If you notice, there are um, rows and columns, no? Okay, in the lower portion, there are rows actually. So you can see there the total number of test items. So for knowledge, you add the questions allotted for the 4 topics. Like, for example, 3 plus 4, you have 7. 3 plus 8, 5 equals 8. Now, 2 plus 5 plus 5 is 12. Okay, then you have, of course, 5 plus 6 equals 11. Then 10 for your synthesis, and you have 12 for, of course, evaluation. The same, you will have the same formula in getting the total number of test items. So for, of course, for non-knowledge, you have 11.67. For comprehension, you have 13.33. For application, you have 20. For analysis is you have 18.33. For synthesis, you have 16.67. And for evaluation, you have 20%. So the next thing that we need to have is, of course, the placement of test items. So this test, which consists of 60 items, can be divided in 3 parts. Okay, supposing your part 1 is test 1, which is multiple choice. So you can have it there. So you have 1 to 15 items. Now for part two, you have 16 to 38. Probably you can have for test two is for application analysis, no? Okay, and for part three, you have 39 to 60. So if you're going to total all the test items, you have of course 60. So that's one thing, okay, to make sure that your of course answer is correct. And of course the table of specifications that you have is correct. Okay, another probably example here is of course the um new, no? Uh level of the Bloom's taxonomy of learning. So you can see here the learning outcomes. You have actually six learning outcomes now for that particular. Supposing we're talking about first grading here. So you have the R, okay, for remembering, U is for understanding, A for applying, another A for analysis, E for evaluating, and of course the last is creating the same, you know. Okay, so you need to have, of course, the learning outcomes, plus, of course, the levels of the new blooms of taxonomy of learning. Okay, so the next thing that we need to have is to know the number of discussion days. Okay, so for example, for learning outcome one, 1 day, for learning outcome two, 1 day also, for learning outcome three, two, for learning outcome four is two, for learning outcome five is three, and six, for learning outcome six, you have 3 days also. If you're going to add it all, you have 12. And the total number of test items that okay, you develop or the teacher develop is 40. So that's it. That's the first. Okay. The second is we have to compute, no? Okay, the number of items or number of test items. So the same, you have the number of course, recitation days or discussion days over the total number of recitation. So you have 1 over 12 times, of course, the total number of items is 40. So the answer is 3. Okay. For learning outcome two is 3 also, 7 for, of course, learning outcome three, the same with learning outcome four, 7, and for learning outcomes five and six, you have 10. No? So if you're going to add it all, you have 40 items. Okay, the next is you need to compute for the percentage of test items. So the formula is the number of test items, okay, over the total number of items times 100. So supposing you have three, okay, which is the number of test items over 40 times 100. So you have, of course, 7.5 for learning outcome one. For the same with two. For three, no, learning outcome three, you have 17.5. The same with four. And for learning outcome five and six, you have, of course, 25, no percent. So the total is 100. Okay, so the next thing that that we need to do rather is we need to identify where, okay, we're going to place. For example, for learning outcome one, so there are three questions and the teacher plays or Sir Ambos plays it in remembering. So you can see three. Okay, for understanding, it's with, of course, three also, no? You can see that in learning outcome number two. For learning outcome number three, there are 7 questions and it was placed, no? Okay, in the applying, the same with, of course, analyzing 7. Okay, and for learning outcome number five and that talks about, of course, the evaluating, you have 10. The same with, of course, the creating, no, level, which is 10 also. So if you're going to have that one, you can see the total in the lower portion, no? You have the total number of test items for remembering is 3, understanding is 3, we have, of course, applying is 3, analyzing is 3, okay, evaluating is no, again, going back. So for applying and analyzing, you have 7, and for evaluating is 10. The same with, of course, creating. So that's it. That's with the total number of test items. If you add it all, you have, of course, 40. Okay. And the next thing that you need to do is, of course, to compute for the total percentage of test items. So you can have 7.5, 7.5, 17.5, 17.5, and 25 for, of course, evaluating, and the same with, of course, creating, which is 25 also. So that's very simple. And the next thing that you do is to place the test, no? Okay, the placement of the test item. So in the model that you can see for part one, you have number 1 to 6, and then for part two is 7 to 20. For part three is 21 to 30, and part four is 31 to 40. So that's it. Okay, but as teachers, you can be innovative and creative in doing such, no? Placement of the test items wherever you want. Okay, that items to be placed. So that's it. Okay, so that's of course on how we're going to of course create now the table of specifications. I hope you learned something no in of course doing our table of specifications. Okay, we're done with of course the TOS. Next, the thing that we are going to discuss about is about objective test types. And we particularly discuss of course the strengths and of course the weaknesses of these. Okay, let's have the objective test type. So you have, of course, the multiple choice test, no, the true false items, the short answer items, and of course, the matching type test. So that's it. Okay, so let's start with, of course, the true false items test. Okay, there are two answers here that we can have probably. We have, of course, the correct and the incorrect, or the true and, of course, the false. So with of course the nature, it is a binomial choice test, a test that have only two options. Okay, either of course true or false. So that's it. True false questions can also be called alternative response question. Why alternative? Because if it is not true, it is false. So an objective test presented in a form of simple declarative statement to which the students respond indicating whether the statement is true or false. And true false questions actually present a statement and prompt the student to choose whether the statement is truthful. Okay, and for the advantages and disadvantages of these, no, the first is it's relatively easy to write and develop. It's also quick to score and objective nature limits bias in scoring. Now easily administered to large number of takers. Then effective as either written or oral assessment, and of course it limits bias due to poor writing and or reading skills. And lastly, it's amenable to item analysis, which allows, of course, improvement for the assessment device. Okay. For, of course, the disadvantages, no, may, of course, overestimate learning due to the influence of guessing. So students will guess probably because if they do not know, they can, of course, guess as true, no, or false. And it's difficult to differentiate between effective, difficult items and tricky items or trick items. And it often leads to testing trivial facts or bits of information and generally less discriminating than multiple choice items. And often, of course, criticized for encouraging rote memorization upon or among the students. Okay. Of course, here are no the steps on how to construct true or false test. Okay, so for the guidelines, rule number one, do not give a hint in the body of question. For example, the Philippines gained its independence in 1998 and therefore celebrated its centennial year in 2020. So that's not a good probably question. If we're going to revise it, the Philippines gained its independence on the year 1898. So that's better question. Okay. Then the second is avoid using the word always or never or often and other adverbs that tend to be either always true or always false. Example, Christmas always falls on Sunday because it is a Sabbath day. So it's not probably good, no? Okay, so to revise it, this year Christmas falls on a Sunday, true or false. So that's it. Okay, for rule three, no, avoid trick statements with some minor misleading word or spelling anomaly, misplaced phrases, and etc. For example, no? Okay, the principal of our school is Mr. Albert P. Panadero. It should be, okay, if we're going to revise, the principal of our school is Mr. Albert P. Panadero. So what's wrong there? The principal word. Okay. For the rule number 4, use negative statements sparingly and do not double negatives. For example, no, bread and grain are not at the top of the food pyramid. Okay, if we're going to revise it, bread and grains are at the top of the food pyramid. Okay, because there are no double negatives. Use double, no. We need not to use okay double negatives. So that's it. Okay, then for rule 5, avoid long sentences as this tends to be true. For example, okay, tests need to be valid, reliable, and useful, although it would require a great amount of time and effort to ensure that possess these test characteristics. It's very lengthy, no? Okay, or very long. So if we're going to revise it, test needs to be valid, reliable, and useful. Okay, the short the better. Okay, for the rule number 6, avoid using more than one idea in a true false question. You need to make your main point prominent. For example, all spiders have exoskeleton and only prey on insects. Okay, there are actually two ideas there. If we're going to revise it, all spiders have exoskeleton. So that's it. It's clear now. Okay, for other rules, rule number 7, avoid quoting verbatim from reference materials or textbooks. For rule 8, avoid grossly disproportionate no number of either true or false statement or even patterns in the occurrence of the true and false statements. Okay, for rule 9, statements should always be clearly true or false. Okay, do not use items which, of course, involve controversial materials. Okay, and for rule 9, statements should be always, of course, clearly rather true or false. Okay, do not use items which, of course, involve controversial material or rely on personal opinion or it's opinionated by nature. And for rule 10, keep all statements approximately equal in length. And for rule 11, use simple grammatical structure. So these are, of course, the other rules that are okay in line with, of course, the true false test. Okay, the next is, of course, the completion type and the short answer item. So this type of test requires students to fill in a short answer with his or her own words. Okay, and we have, of course, the similarities between completion and short answer. It covers, of course, the knowledge and comprehension levels in the Bloom's taxonomy, and it asks for recall of information or facts, and it answers range from keywords to phrases. Okay, for differences, of course, completion. Okay, for completion type of test, the answer is needed to complete the sentence. However, for short answer, the answer is being asked from a question or a statement. And for completion, the blank is placed at the end of the incomplete sentence, while in the short answer, the blank is placed before the item number. Okay, for the advantages, it's actually easy to construct. Then it requires the student to supply the answer. It's faster to answer, of course, and it's better to diagnostic information. For the disadvantages, no, there is limited to measuring recall of information, and handwriting and spelling become bit of an issue. And the students fill the blank with unintended responses and scored erroneously than are, of course, the objectively scored formats. Okay, for the guidelines, we need to allow sufficient space for the student response. Then we keep all response blanks of equal length to avoid queuing. And the question format is often more desirable than, of course, the statement completion. So the grammatical style of the latter could influence, of course, the choice of the answer. We have some important guidelines for, of course, the completion of the formulation, rather, of a completion type of test. Okay, the first is avoid, of course, over mutilated sentences like this item. So give enough clue to the student. Okay, for example, the process by the blank is used by the green blank to change the blank and the blank into blank. So this process is called blank. So there's a lot of course, no, blank in the questions. So it's really hard for students to answer. Okay, avoid open-ended item. There should be only one acceptable answer. Okay, this item is open-ended, hence no good test items. For example, Ernest Hemingway wrote blank. Okay, supposing this Ernest Hemingway is an author and he have published probably right and of course wrote or have unpublished three books. So well, supposing there are three answers, now it's really hard no to have of course the exact answer there because it's general or generic. Okay, then the blank should be at the end or near the end of the sentence. So the question must be first, okay, asked before, of course, an answer is expected. Example, a part of speech that names a person, places, or thing is blank. The next is last question or one more significant item, not a trivial matter. Example, Jose Rizal was born on June blank 1861. So that date there, no? Okay. Supposing that is the question, it's really, of course, uh, hard because some might not recall, of course, the day. Okay, so the length of the blank must not suggest the answer. So better to make the blanks uniform in size. So a part of speech that names a person, places, or thing is blank. Okay, a word used to connect clauses or sentences or to coordinate words in the same clause is called blank. So the blank is in equal size, no uniform size. Okay, let's have, of course, the multiple choice type of test. So when we say multiple choice, it is a type of test in a form of assessment in which students are asked to select the correct or best answer out of the choices from, of course, the list. And it requires the student to select from the given options that will make, of course, the STEM complete or correct, and all incorrect or less appropriate responses are called these tractors and of course foils or foils. So that's it. Let's have a okay multiple choice test. And here you can see no a sample of a multiple choice item which has three parts. So you have of course the question, which is the stem. Then we have of course the options. No, these two options, okay, can be divided actually. Now there are actually four options. You can see A, B, C, D. Okay, so three are of course called distractors, but there is the main answer which is known as the key. So letter C, okay, Ivan Pavlov is the answer. Okay, but also question is the psychologist who formulated theory of classical conditioning is letter C, Ivan Pavlov. Okay, so that's it. So another here presentation is you can see the multiple choice type of test offers students with more than two options per item to choose from. So you can have, of course, four options. And the question is, who is the incumbent president of the Republic of the Philippines? It's before. Okay, no, supposing it's the present. The answer is, of course, Ferdinand E. Marcos, the present president. Okay, so the question is called, of course, the STEM, as what we have mentioned. Okay. For the advantages, okay, it has a great versatility in measuring, of course, objectives from the level of the role of the rote memorization to the most complex level. And it often requires less time to administer than tests requiring test responses. Scoring is objective since, of course, only little interpretation is needed to count the number of correct responses. Okay, and of course, factors relevant to the assessed material, such as handwriting and clarity of presentation, do not come into play, okay, in a multiple choice assessment. Okay, yeah. For other advantages, items are more, of course, amenable to item analysis, and this can, of course, be used to detect areas of student weaknesses and evidence no, of the item ambiguity, item difficulty, and the extent to which the item can measure individual differences. So the multiple choice item can be used to test, of course, a great variety of instructional objectives, and it does not require the examinee to write out and elaborate their answers, minimizing, of course, the opportunity for less knowledgeable examinees to be to block, okay, or dress up their answers. Okay, for of course the disadvantages. So this type of test is more time consuming in terms of looking for options that are plausible. Okay, that's why we need to allot time now for students to answer. Then the term multiple guess has been, of course, used to describe the scenario because test takers may attempt to guess, okay, rather than determine the correct answer. They require, of course, students to choose from among a fixed list of options, okay, rather than to create or express their own ideas and, of course, solutions. And for poorly written multiple choice test items can be superficial, trivial, and limited to factual knowledge, and place a high degree no, of dependence on students' reading ability and teachers' writing ability. And lastly, it lead a teacher to favor simple recall of facts. Okay, what about guidelines in constructing multiple choice tests? So the first is we have grammatical form should be consistent in each of the distractors and the correct answer. The next is reasonable distractors that are written the comprehension of the students and match each test item to the performance objective. It is designed to evaluate in order to maintain validity. And of course, the length of the responses must be consistent. Okay, lastly, limit the use of course, the keyed response, such as all of the above or none of the above. So these are, of course, the guidelines in doing or constructing our multiple choice test. Okay. There are actually, of course, common item problems in a multiple choice test. Okay, for example, you have queuing, the 3-for-1 split, no impurity, subsuming the apples and oranges, no unparalleled option, the gender representation, even stereotypes, no implementary tone, the double keys, no the no key, okay, implausibility, the outside and the or background knowledge, the trickiness no, of the question, the insensitivity, inappropriate, and lastly, inappropriate technology. Let's have example of these, no? Okay, for example, for queuing, so I have here an example. So within an item or within the test, when you write for deposit only a check, you are probably going to. Okay, so you have cash a check, deposit money, transfer funds, or open an account. So if you're going to have, there is the queue, no, word there for deposit only. So you deposit money. So that's it. That's queuing. Another is 3-for-1 split. So you have three distractors which are parallel. The fourth is not, aka odd man out. For example, the hotel, no? Okay, blank an ad in the newspaper to recruit new employees. Okay, the hotel placing an ad, the hotel plays an ad, okay, the hotel to place an ad, and the hotel placement an ad. So you can easily, of course, no, identify the correct answer. Okay, what about unparalleled option? So this talks about response options are not parallel in length and grammar. For example, how do Russians go to work? Okay, A, by bus, B, go by taxi, C, most of them drive, D, walk. So if you're going to have that's unparalleled paralleled options, no? Okay, let's have, of course, the apples and oranges. So response option have no relation to one another or are two for two split. So nowadays people use mobile phones blank. Okay, frequently, seldom in their cars for emergency purposes. So if you're going to notice, no? Nowadays people use mobile phones frequently Okay, nowadays people use mobile phones seldom. Okay, nowadays people use mobile phones in their cars. Okay, or nowadays people use mobile phones for emergency purposes. So it's really hard, of course. Okay, yeah. The next lesson that we're going to have is, of course, matching type test. So this is very particular also to all of you, no? Okay, so you have there constructing matching type of test, and you can see, of course, two columns there, column A and column B. So the column A are the stems, of course, and column B, of course, are the options that you can have. And we have, of course, matching type test, which we have, of course, a definition. Now, it is an objective test consisting of two sets of items to be matched with each other for a specified attribute. It's actually a recognition and a structured response type of test. And the matching type may be considered as modified multiple choice type items, where, of course, the choices progressively reduce as one successfully matches now the items on the left with the items on the right. Okay. And here is an example, yeah, the of the matching type test. So the items in the first column are called the premises, and the answers in the second column are called the responses. Okay. We have, of course, the classification, okay, of the matching type test. We have, of course, the perfect match or the open, and the imperfect match, which is known as the closed. When we say perfect match, when the number of items in the premise column is equal to the number of the items in the response. And when we say, of course, closed, no, or imperfect match, okay, when, of course, the premises column has less items than the response column. Okay, you can see here a sample. Now, this is a perfect matching. Okay, and the other example is the imperfect match. So there are six columns. There are six probably questions, no? Okay, in column A, but the answers are only four in column B, imperfect. Okay, for advantages, okay, scoring is not, of course, subjective because responses are single word. Okay, then letters and other symbols with definite value points, and hence the personal element of the scores is removed. And it's easy to check. Then it allows the comparison of related ideas, okay, concepts or theories, and handicaps such as poor vocab, okay, poor handwriting, poor spelling, poor grammar, and the like do not adversely affect the ability to make a reply. So that's it. Then validity and reliability of the matching type exams are higher than, of course, the essay or the essay. Okay, and of course, the sampling of the examination is more representative, and so measurement is more extensive. This is because more items are included in the test compared to the essay. So that's it. Okay. And for the disadvantages, it is hard to prepare. It measures factual knowledge only. It encourages memory work even without understanding. Then students can guess in this type of exam, and it does not help in nor encourage development of the ability of the students to organize and express their ideas. Okay. What about for the guidelines? So you can see here, use an imperfect match as much as possible. So it's being encouraged. Place all the items for one matching exercises on the same page. No, do not use another page because it's really hard for students to look for the options or the answers. Then order of correct answers are randomly arranged. Arrange items in response column in either logical or natural order alphabetically if there is no apparent organizational basis. Okay, then statements borrowed from the textbooks or other references must be avoided. There should be no keywords appearing in both a premise and response, providing a clue to the correct answer and prepare a scoring key or guide. Okay. The next test that we have is the essay type and its types, no? Okay. And we have the steps on how to construct essay type of test. Okay, when we say essay test, it is a test that requires, of course, the student to compose responses, usually lengthy up to several paragraphs, and questions that test, of course, the higher level processes such as analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and creativity. So take note, higher order. Okay, and the distinctive rather feature of essay type test is their freedom of response. So students are feel free, to select, relate, and present ideas in their own words. Okay, what are the uses of essay tests? So you have, of course, to assess the ability to recall, organize, and integrate ideas. Second is assess the ability to express oneself in writing, then the ability to supply information, then assess students' understanding of subject matter, and of course, measure the knowledge of factual information. We have here essay questions can be used not to measure attainment of variety of objectives. So we have, for example, comparing. So example that we can have is describe the similarities and differences between the two things, no? Okay, or compare the following methods for. So that's comparing. What about relating cause and effect? So examples that we can have, what are the major causes of, or what would be the most likely effects of? Okay, then for justifying, example that we can have is which of the following alternatives would you favor and why? So you justify the answer. Or explain why you agree or disagree with the following statement. So it's still justifying. Okay. For summarizing, we need to state the points included in, now, for example, okay, state, yeah, or briefly summarize the contents of it's summarizing. For generalizing, no, for example, we can have formulate several valid generalizations from the following data. So you present data. Then state a set of principles that can explain the following events. So generalizing still. Okay, for classifying, we need to group the following items according to, okay, or what do the following items have in common? So that's classifying. Okay, for inferring, so in the light of the facts presented, what is the most likely to happen when? Okay, or how would Senator Bebang to react to the bomb explosion after the bar examination last September? It's supposing, it's inferring. Okay, for applying, okay, examples that we can have are using the principles of, okay, as a guide. Now describe how you would solve the following problem situation. Okay, what about describe a situation that illustrates the principle of? So you have, of course, to apply the principle. What about analyzing? We can use here, describe the reasoning errors in the following paragraphs. So you need to analyze, list and describe the main characteristics of. Okay. Then we have for evaluating, no? Describe the strengths and weaknesses of the following. So you need to evaluate. Okay, the strengths and weaknesses using the criteria developed in class, write an evaluation of. Okay, and for creating example is make up a story describing what would happen if. Okay, or design a plan to prove that. So it's still creating. Now write a well-organized report that shows that's creating. So these are probably some examples that we can have now in creating essay questions. Okay, we have, of course, forms of essay test. We have the restricted or response controlled response. Okay, or the other one is the extended response or uncontrolled response. So when we say restricted essay, it is also referred to as short focus response. Okay, and when we say extended, so non-restricted or extended essays can be much longer and complex than short, okay, responses, but students are encouraged to remain focused and organized, even if it's long. Okay, and for the restricted questions, no? Okay, the restricted response usually limits, of course, both the content and response by restricting the scope of the topic to be discussed, then useful for measuring learning outcomes requiring interpretation and application of data in a specific area. Example, describe two situations that demonstrate now the application of the law of supply and demand. Do not use those examples discussed in class. It's very, of course, specific. Okay, so there is restriction there. Okay, and state the main differences between the Vietnam War and the previous war in which the United States has participated. So there is actually no limits on how you're going to explain. Okay, for of course the advantages of restricted response. Okay, restricted response questions is more, of course, structured. Okay, and measure specific learning outcomes. And restricted area of upper response rather provide more ease of assessment and any outcomes measured and objective interpretive exercise can be measured by restricted response easy questions. Okay, however, for limitation, no restricted response questions restricts the scope of the topic to be discussed and indicating the nature of the desired response, which limits students' opportunity to demonstrate this behavior. Okay, for our extended response essay questions, so it allows students to select information that they think is pertinent, okay, to organize the answer in accordance with their best judgment and to integrate and evaluate ideas as they, of course, think suitable. They do not, of course, set limits on the length or exact content to be discussed. Example is that compare developments in international relations in the administration of President William Clinton and President George Bush. No, then you cite examples when possible. And imagine that you and a friend found a magic wand. Write a story about an adventure that you and your friend had with a magic wand. So that's it. It's, of course, the extended. Okay, for of course the advantages, this type of essay item is mostly useful in measuring learning outcomes at the higher cognitive levels of educational objectives, such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation levels, and it exposes the individual differences in attitudes, values, and creative ability. Okay, for the limitations of extended response questions, they are insufficient for measuring knowledge of factual materials because they call for extensive details in selected content area at a time. And of course, scoring such type of responses is usually difficult and unreliable since the examinees have free will in the array of factual information of varying degree of correctness and coherence and expression. Okay, for the advantages of essay question, we have the following. First is the freedom of response allows, of course, the students to express himself. Okay, then it measures complex learning outcomes that cannot be measured by other means. Okay, essay test promotes, of course, the development of problem-solving skills. Okay, and it helps students to improve their writing skills, such as writing speed. It encourages creativity by allowing their own unique way, and the freedom of response allows, of course, students to express himself in his own words, and it measures, of course, complex learning outcomes that cannot be measured by other means. And essay test promotes the development of problem-solving skills, and it helps students to improve their writing skills, such as writing speed, and of course, no, it encourages creativity, okay, by allowing their own way. So actually, yeah, there is the repetition of this. Okay. And for the disadvantages of essay questions, scoring is not reliable because different examiners can grade the score answer differently. In fact, of course, the same examiner can grade the same question differently at different times. And next is grading of essay test is time consuming because you need to read. Then subjective scoring of essay questions. No? Then essay questions do not cover the course content and the objectives as comprehensively as possible. And lastly, evaluating essay questions without adequate attention to the learning outcomes is just like three blind men appraising an elephant. Okay, one teacher stresses factual content, one organization of ideas, and another writing skills. So these probably are things that we need to consider. For the suggestions for constructing essay questions, Okay, we need to restrict the use of essay questions to those learning outcomes that cannot be satisfactorily measured by objective items. Then state the questions clearly and precisely and make clear what information the answer should contain. Okay, number three is indicate the approximate time limit for each question. Number four is avoid the use of optional questions. Okay, number five, evaluate answers to essay questions without knowing, okay, the identity of the writer. And number six is construct question that will call for the skills specified in the learning standards. Okay, example here, write a two-page statement depending the importance of conserving our natural resources. Okay, your answer will be evaluated in terms of its organization, comprehensiveness, and relevance of the arguments presented. Okay. Here are, of course, suggestions for scoring essay questions. Okay, score the responses questions by question rather than student by student. Okay, then disassociate the identity of students from responses during the grading process. And lastly, determine in advance what aspects of the response okay, uh, will be or will not be judged in scoring. Okay, take note, everybody, that know what to look for before starting the grade papers. That's probably a friendly reminder, no? Know what to look for before starting to grade papers. Okay. Um, for our, of course, references, you can see here no, in our screen. So I would like to thank, of course, Sir Courtseed no, for his slide share, okay, which I retrieve and probably use in this presentation, together with, of course, Roble, okay, um, RN, no, um, posted, of course, in the slide share, and I use no in, of course, the slide for their notes. And of course, I would like to give credit also to the following authors like Ang De Ocampo, uh, Quilistino, Rivera, and Samir. Okay, this is again your Sir A saying, of course, have a good day. I hope, of course, you learned something for today. Okay. Thank you so much and God bless. Bye bye.